Well, my dear Boulas and Perils, welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. It is an absurdly early morning over here at before the crack of dawn, recording this before 7 a.m. once again and maintaining that early wake up schedule, which I've been pretty damn happy about. As always, would like to wish you the best of the best before we get into the actual analysis right here. And with that said, let's go look at, oh my god, my speech is already fucked up. But let's go look at the Krown chain application over here, which can be found at app.crowntrading.net and is 100% free. And what do we have to see? Well, it rhymes. Well, that's the end of the rhymes right there, I guess. But looking at the open interest, actually coming down from yesterday to today. So you'll notice that Bitcoin did also head up to the top side of the short-term range. While open interest coming down does kind of suggest a little bit of pause for concern, and in fact I will be following up, especially on yesterday's medium-term analysis, which looks a little bit frothy right now. Anyways, I want to save that for a little bit later. Looking at the Bitcoin dominance coming down slight amount as well, but still maintaining the overall range. I think it will be worth looking at the actual Bitcoin dominance chart, and the fear and greed index also coming down 1 point from yesterday to today as well. Again, another very strange read there. Again, as Bitcoin actually did put in about a $200 to $300 rally off the short-term bottom side range all the way to the top side of the short-term range as well. So this is going to be a little bit of cause for caution as we look at the actual price action charts right now. So going back on over here and following up from yesterday, this is the chart that we are looking at, I believe. Yeah, we were using GDAX right here. And I think Bitcoin was hanging around somewhere around like 11,300 when we last spoke yesterday. And we did say, or I said that I was looking for another move to the downside. We obviously didn't get that. We actually did head back up and test back up towards the top side of the short-term range. But this is why I give out levels and why I always say I do not trade my opinion. I trade technical analysis. In this case right here, breaking this level on a 4-hour dildo closure, getting that next major move up. Well, not so major. These are very tight ranges right here, all the way up to about 11,500-ish region. But that is the critical area right there. And that's still actually maintains my overall bias on this price action. I'd actually be looking at this as your next lower high on this time frame, and this can be repeated all the way up to, I believe, a 12-hour right here. And as long as Bitcoin's kind of within this region, I do have cause for caution. Again, looking at the open interest read that we just saw, as it looks like Bitcoin, as long as it's below 11,500, I don't change anything on the medium-term time frames. I'm actually still looking for a move back down to the $11,000 base right here. I will change that opinion very quickly, looking for a move back up towards the 11,750-ish marker if Bitcoin can do one of two things. If it can either close a 2-hour or 4-hour dildo above, and my voice cracks at the same time, above 11,500, or just take out yesterday's wick high. One of those two things, which basically kind of in the same area to be quite frank, as the high of yesterday was 11,539.99. Does still maintain my bias, and I do look at this as just a bearish retest of that level, unfortunately. And seeing as we just got that next 4-hour dildo, this is now confirmed as a lower high right here, as we do have continuation below, once again cracking back down below that 200 simple. So extremely short term if I did have to call this one, which I think is a very bad way of expressing these sorts of ideas when it comes to trading, because you can't really call anything. What you can do though is you can come up with statistical probabilities and whatnot, which actually can be played over a long period of time, but there's no necessarily like 100% way of doing things to begin with. So looking at this right here, I would be looking for probably a very short-term move back up to test the top side of this blue box territory, which is basically where the 200 simple is on the 4-hour, and then I'd be looking for continuation back down to the 200 exponential average, which is 11,280, with potential continuation all the way down to 11,000 overall, which I actually do think is quite likely here. The real question for myself as far as the structure goes, it's still the same question that I've been having for the last few weeks, and that is how does Bitcoin react at the long-term ranges, both to the upside and the downside. The upside long-term range is still 11,000, or we could say 12,000. Just it's easier to say. Technically 11,900, if you want to be super exact with it, but I do think that 12,000 is just colloquially easier to say. And by the same token, to the downside, the long-term range to the downside would still be 11,000. And again, you can make a nice range here. Technically, it's between about 10,950 all the way to 11,050 right here. Nice $100 range. As long as Bitcoin maintains between those two levels, nothing's really changed from the long term, and I actually still maintain my long-term bias. So I want to take a quick moment here to like really hammer in something that I think is really important, and it's something that I typically save for the TA nerd session because, well, typically those are the kind of people who actually happen to give a fuck. But most importantly, it's really important to reiterate the differences between the short-term timeframes, the medium timeframes, and the high and the macro timeframes. So while yes, on the short-term timeframes, I can maintain a bias like that, or even on the medium-term timeframes as well, the higher-term timeframes are still mostly unchanged. It's not until we actually break below this $11,000 region right here where I will target moves back down at the very least to 10,500, and very likely below there, actually all the way somewhere between about 97 to 9,800-ish region is where I'd be looking towards. By the same token, to the upside, I don't really look for upside continuation to new highs on this run to 13,000 and beyond, very likely, until Bitcoin closes a 12-hour or daily at the very least above 12,000, we'll say. So for right now, the long-term timeframes are unchanged, which actually does mean that the same bias from the long-term timeframe is still very much viable. That obviously, will change below 11,000, but for right now, this is still an uptrend. This is still more or less healthy on the higher term timeframes, but again, on the lower term timeframes right here, does look like it wants to test some downside. So what does that likely look like? Well, I do think that we get another swipe to the downside right here at the very least 11,250. And personally speaking, I do think that it will swipe somewhere down around where we saw on the low for 25th of August. So just 2 days ago, I believe that was Tuesday or Monday, something like that. But overall, I'd be looking for very likely another move down here. That's the big question though. How does Bitcoin react at the long-term level to the downside? If it does get another bounce around here, which by the way is going to be rounded out by the green 55 exponential moving average soon enough, in just about a day or two actually, it will definitely be lining up here and crawling up higher and higher as time goes on, which is overall good. But the question is, how does the reaction come about from here? So now we're going to really start to do a little bit more with this, which I need to be very careful with the way that I choose my words because it can be very easy to be misheard. So while I do think that things come back down around here, yes, the question is, how is the reaction? And here's the big thing that I want to focus on. If Bitcoin does come back down to this level, the only way, not the only way, but what I'd be looking for in order to get bullish once again on this range would be getting back above 11,500. That is your last rejection point right here. You can also see the 21 exponential moving average starting to turn down with it as well. And what's very problematic right now is that if Bitcoin does fail to actually get back above 11,500, probably in this next week or two, we will see the 10 simple cross to the downside of the 21, which typically does confirm that trend, which in this case would be in the process of constructing a downtrend. We did in the last 2 days do something rather significant. We put in another lower high right here in comparison to our 12,300 high right here, and then more importantly, with 2 days ago we closed on new lows below our last prior low on 10th of August. So we are in the process of creating a downtrend on the daily. I'd still be using 11,000 as a critical point, as a critical juncture, so to speak. But right now, momentum on the daily is to the downside. It will remain to the downside as long as Bitcoin's closing daily deltas below 11,600. So going back into our medium-term time frame analysis, as long as Bitcoin's below 11.5, I'm looking for this to very likely come back down again. If Bitcoin can take out 11.5 to the upside, I wouldn't be looking for just a move to 11.6. I'd be looking for a move to 11.700-ish region, which would imply that we actually will flip daily momentum back up to the upside. So at that point, I'd be targeting to move back up towards about 12,000-ish region, give or take a few bucks. But for right now, pressure is on to the downside, and it's up to the laws to bring this one back up and around sooner rather than later. Otherwise, these things will naturally start to rear their ugly head, I suppose. Looking at the 12-hour, same thing as well. We do see 12-hour momentum actually under price action right now. So what this can also be looked at, if this does come back down below 11,300 on the next closure, then we will turn momentum back down, rejecting getting out of the bearish control zone right here, and very likely head back down towards the 25th of May lows, probably even lower than that, towards 11,000 base, maybe 10.9 if things get a little bit more nasty. You never know where a stray wick might end up, as the 12-hour jewel, more importantly, lines up for a continuation haughtier sell signal. So it did give you a sell signal, a pretty damn good sell signal right here on the 17th of August, confirmed for the more conservative traders on the 18th of August, which was where? That was right here, actually. So didn't give you the ultimate high, but did give you 12,100. And now, once again, lining up for a continuation sell signal, which I do think will be fully confirmed and imply a target down towards the bottom side of the long-term range between that $10,900 to $11,000 marker if Bitcoin closes, especially this next 12-hour dildo below 11,350. So what essentially I'm saying overall is that as long as Bitcoin is closing 4-hour dildos, especially especially below 11.5. And I mean, we could even say just even as long as it maintains this lower wick below 11,539.99, the high of yesterday, that'd be the 26th of August, then I'm essentially looking for price to come back down. I would just be looking at this as a bearish reset. I know a lot of people, I are on the lower term timeframes again. I know a lot of people are looking at this girthy 4-hour dildo right here as being a nice reversal point. No, we've seen this many times, and selling off like this almost immediately after it, after just retesting the medium term time frame range at 11,500, does not change anything for myself. That was only a very short term play, not to be considered anything more than that. And with Bitcoin cracking back down below the 200 simple right here, while 4-hour momentum has risen this whole way up to the edge of the bearish control zone, by the way, then it does look like it's kind of having more or less of a bearish reset right here. I still have yet to see any sort of divergences, even on the very low term timeframes. 4-hour RSI is still there's absolutely no bullish divergence here at all whatsoever. In fact, do we have maybe hidden bearish divergence? No, actually nowhere near that as well. So at least there's that for the Boolaws out there. 2-hour not even going to show any bullish divergence here either. We actually made new lows on RSI compared to the last low that we had on 21st of August. Bi-hourly is going to show nothing at all as well. And in fact, we might even have, I wouldn't say that, although technically it would be true. But even looking at the hourly, no bullish divergence here, even on that last drive. So it does lead me to believe that we probably do test the lows again. And at that point, if you do start to see divergences form and Bitcoin puts in, formulates itself a local low, then perhaps yes, we could play one, could play one of those out. But for right now, it's not present at all. In fact, and it would imply that obviously we'd have to close on new lows as well if that even is going to come about. So that is what's at stake right now. Oh, and I should also mention this, by the way. This lovely indicator right here, plus many more, this one being the reverse Stochastic indicator cross, is actually now up for grabs, or maybe not up for grabs, but up for sale. Bali and Pig, I should say, have put up a lot of their indicators, a lot of the ones that I show here, like the reverse Stochastic indicator cross, like the reverse RSI, like the expected moves and the probability panel and the cones. And I actually do have a link to it in the description of this video if you want to check it out. Bali's has been extremely good to me, giving all these tools to the community, and now he's opened it up, so I do want to support him in that way as well. So if you are interested in that sort of thing, definitely check it out. As I've found, it's really helped, especially with my options trading. So if you are an options trader, the expected moves, the expected moves, just indicator, is something that's helped quite a bit and brought on a whole new unique sort of perspective to my own trading, and so perhaps it might help you as well. So check it out. It's in the description below. And okay, let's get back on with it. Okay, so let's see. What else do we have to look at here? Yeah, 4 momentum will turn back onto the downside with any sort of a closure below 11,350. So here's what I can say now is that we can now start to formulate, once again, the short-term time frame range, which we kind of already had yesterday, to be fair. But if we throw back on all of these drawing tools right here, let's take this one off, and we could actually flip this to the downside right here, just so that it actually has a little bit more room. Something like this would be a little bit more akin, and actually we can even just get rid of the zone, so to speak, and just go off of this right here and make this, a little bit less easier on the eyes, I guess. But overall, if Bitcoin does close below this level, not only will we be closing on new lows, essentially creating, continuing the downtrend, but all momentum from a 4-hour up to a 12-hour, as we just showed, will turn back down at the same time. And that's why I do think Bitcoin very likely would tumble all the way back down to 11,000-ish base for another, 350, maybe even $450 move, which is very tradable. I mean, that's a short-term, medium-term move at this price point. So realistically, right now, the range, whether you define it as a short-term or medium-term time frame range, and I could make the argument for both, would be essentially between about 11,300, we'll say, right here to the downside, and to the upside, just any sort of a wick above yesterday's high at 11,540-ish region, we'll call it. And check your exchange. It will differ between exchanges, but for right now, this is a trend on the 4-hour, and the trend is your friend, and it's actually even pouring on over into the 12-hour and daily now too as well. So I do believe that is probably more likely Bitcoin tests the downside here. We'll obviously look at probabilities later, and And you know, I do want to reiterate, you know, this is that whole dynamic there is opinion, obviously mediated by indicators and statistics. However, if Bitcoin does head back above this level, I would be looking for another move back up towards the 11,700-ish region. Maybe even Bitcoin, you know, takes out this prior high right here, and then we initiate another move, another $300, $400 high to 12,000. Very possible as well, although it just seems less likely right now with all the things kind of formulating in the medium and lower term time frames. That does matter quite a bit, and well, you know, I mean, this doesn't necessarily look all that healthy right here in the lower term timeframes. So fair enough. Anyways, is there anything lining up on historical volatility percentile on the hourly? Somewhat, but not really. It is contracting rather aggressively here. We should, you know, it will get, if this contraction phase does carry on, I would be looking for it to come down pretty aggressively, actually sometime around the open of New York Stock Exchange today. So in about like 8-9 hours, something like that, and very likely does line up with a move around that time. So looking at that, I would keep an intentful eye on that, as I do think that that would suggest that we do get a move very likely today to one of the critical areas of that region. So, Jesus Christ, man, I feel like I'm all over the place right now. I feel like this is probably not all that helpful, but hopefully, you know, the critical things are standing out here. Again, medium term, short term time frame range, they're kind of one and the same right here. 11,540 to the upside versus 11,300 to the downside. Need to see a closure on a 2-hour or 4-hour below here to denote continuation back down to this level. Although my overall bias is Bitcoin will test the downside as long as it's essentially below 11,500, especially on a 2-hour or 4-hour closing basis, or just on or creating lower wicks than what we saw on the high of yesterday. That's essentially it. If Bitcoin does head above this one right here, I'd be looking for a short-term move up another couple $100 towards 11.7. And if Bitcoin does take out this area, then I'd extend that target significantly more, actually towards $12,000. By the same token, to the downside, you know, obviously below 11.3, I'd be looking for continuation to about 11, and very likely a bounce right here. The question is, how high does the bounce get? So hopefully I can get my thoughts out properly right there. If the bounce fails to get back over 11,500, then perhaps we do have a potential reversal and like a major reversal in place. I think that it's still very unlikely when you look at the higher term timeframes, but it's possible, of course. And you know, my opinion on these sorts of things does not mean anything. I do not trade my opinion, as I always say. I trade technical analysis. And looking at the weekly right here, you know, it is still of, well, let's actually go to a new chart right there, and let's actually curtail that down a little bit. Yeah, there you go. You know, here's also another thing that I'd be keeping an eye on as well. If the weekly does close below 11,500, that would be a pretty epic fake out, to be quite honest with you. As Bitcoin did do something that it had done in the last 3 years, which was close above this liquid zone, or inside this liquid zone even, which it had been getting rejected from ever since January of 2018. So technically speaking, as long as it holds this level, I actually would be looking for it to kind of grind this area out between 11.5 and 12,000. And on a weekly closing basis, that is still very much possible right here. So it could be that Bitcoin does come down and test that bottom side of the long-term range, and then pops back up to close above that critical level before end of week. So, you know, I'd put more importance on the weekly, and then of course the monthly, which is going to be closing as well pretty damn soon, in less than a week. In fact, I think just about 4 days now. Yep, it's going to be next Monday. We get the closure for the monthly, and here's your monthly as it is right now. It's still, or let's go to this chart right here. It's still an overall uptrend. And in fact, I don't really have any major cause for concern on a monthly, as long as monthly dildos are being closed above about 10,900. That would have the same significance as the weekly above the 11,500-ish region. And on the monthly, all momentum oscillators do remain more or less healthy. So the picture that I'm trying to paint here is that, yes, you know, I am short term and medium term probably bearish here, and probably does come down. However, looking at the long term, it does still look overall healthy, and I don't really have any major issues with something that looks like this. You know, this is essentially, or this is quite literally, a rejection of the bearish control zone and then back up, while price action continues the uptrend at the same time, putting a low right here, high right here, higher low right here, and we closed on new highs above this high. So that is quite literally, by definition, continuation. That's all coming along the side of the monthly jewel, giving you a higher long signal, and on the monthly RSI, looking very constructive. You might even call this an inverted head and shoulders right here. You can definitely make the argument for that, and it would imply another move back up to the bullish control zone. Now, of course, when we're looking at a monthly, though, doesn't mean that's going to happen today or tomorrow, but but we're more or less looking at like a range or a time frame range of like between 3 and 6 months, looking for those sorts of signals to play out, which, we have seen them start to play out a little bit. I mean, we have closed on the the second highest monthly closure that Bitcoin's ever had in this whole lifespan, only overshadowed by the $14,000 closure right here in 2018. So as of right now, the higher term time frames are still more or less healthy, and this is even further verified by the bi-monthly, which, higher term time frames take on more meaning and more weight, but they have greater ranges. So looking at the bi-monthly right here, we have technically not closed on new highs just yet, but any sort of a closure above 11,000 will be a new high on this run, and will denote continuation with the same sort of levels implied. Your low right here, your high right here, higher low right here, and closing on a new high. Well, there's continuation, and very likely, targets up to 14,000 and probably beyond are still very much viable, as well as momentum oscillators agreeing with this as bi-monthly stocks head up to the upside. And also bi-monthly RSI retaking the exponential and would be getting back into the bearish control or bullish control zone as well. Jesus Christ, man, maybe I do need some coffee today. Anyways, looking at this right here, it would speak to the long-term health of Bitcoin, which does make me very hesitant to look for a breakdown below 11,000. I do think that it's very likely Bitcoin gets some sort of a bear trap within that region, maybe between 11,000 and maybe even 10,500 possible as well. We want to see this one in real time, but this is really the perspective that I want to be having here, because the higher term timeframes have pulled through overall, and these are all going to be closing at the same time as well, the bi-monthly and the monthly. So if those do get set in stone, above those critical levels that we just spoke about, basically 11,000, if you want to be, if you just want to make it easy, then I don't really have anything bad to say about the long-term trend here. In fact, I'd be looking at that to just more or less be bullish, over the long-term course. That again does not necessarily mean that the short-term and medium-term are going to be bullish, because as we look at right here, it certainly does look like it wants to come down, a little bit more. But I'd be happy to change that around again if Bitcoin does head back above 11,500. Other than that, what else do we want to check out? Let's go check out actually Bitcoin dominance. I'm curious if there's anything new here to check out, because we have seen some strange reads on this one when we look at the Krown chain application. Yeah, look at that major move up there. So we actually did get that move up, but still kind of holding itself right here. I don't have anything to make off of this. This is some bullshit right here. If anything, I actually do still think that it puts in a base here. That we are kind of rounding off the same area that we denoted for a for a big bounce, but there's kind of your big bounce right there, I suppose. Monthly still looking like it wants to turn down overall, so long term probably bearish, but short term, medium term, does it try to put in more of a bounce here? Probably yes. So what does that mean for altcoins? It means that altcoins versus Satoshis probably do get hurt in the short term and medium term. Long term though, this does look like it probably comes down more. So let's just go take a quick look at some of the alts. I'm curious what something like Link is doing, and what is it doing? It actually had a green day yesterday, didn't it? Or did it? Yeah, actually looking pretty good here. I'd be looking for this one to pop up actually all the way back up to 14,000 Satoshi, or what is that, 14,000? 140,000 Satoshis. Yeah, this one's looking pretty good here. The darling of the market strikes once again. This is all coming along the side of daily stokes coming down, while price action essentially maintains the median of this range that's been trying to set in. So I look at that as, more or less healthy, and very likely to test back up here. And guess what? If it does test back up there, it would seem, it's hard to tell. If it does test back up there, you can see that that's around the price point where the daily stokes would start to turn back up. So if momentum starts to turn back up, assuming that it does get back around there on a closure, I'd be looking to extend that run not just to 140,000 Satoshis, but actually very likely back onto the prior high of about 160,000 Satoshis, and maybe beyond after that as well. The weekly is still got those rising wicks, so I am very hesitant to call a major down move based off that. But it's a very simple way of looking at it right here too, because if it does take out last week's wick low, I would be looking for this one to come all the way back down to 97,000 Satoshis, right around here in line with the 10 simple. But for right now, again, when you get into a major blue sky breakout like this one has been in for like the last 3 years, it seems like, I look at nothing less than a weekly RSI or even a daily on this matter to produce bearish divergence before even thinking about a reversal here. And as you can see, there's nothing resembling bearish divergence. Now, it obviously will start to create bearish divergence if it does put another high and fails to get back above what is a pretty fucking high level already at like 86 in some odd sense. But for right now, you know, does imply that it will give another try nonetheless. And same thing on the daily as well. We obviously did have bearish divergence on this point and this point, but even that was not all that aggressive. I'm looking for 3 drives if I'm going to call like a major reversal on something that's just been, you know, absolutely beasting it for the last 3 years. That is very impressive and does deserve respect. So Link, I'd be short-term, medium-term bullish right here, and I'd go back to long-term bullish if it closes the daily anywhere above 140,000 satoshis, preferably today as well. I mean, it's still maintaining these higher lows too. It's still the best chart in cryptocurrency, man. But let's see what's like something that's not as highly esteemed, maybe. No, I would never say that. This one's obviously very nice. Cardano did come down to our lower target right around 950. I would be looking for a bounce off this level, and then we'll come back to it after that. But very likely does try to bounce here. Maybe another quick swipe of that 930 area that we saw a couple days ago. But overall, I'd be looking for this one to try to put in a bounce, and then we'll come back to it. But overall, this is looking long-term toppy. You know, this is a stark contrast to what you see on something like Link, for example. So I really want to pit the Link Marines here versus the Cardano car dealers. I don't fucking know. That's what they seem like. Some fucking greasy car salesman or some shit. You know, that's what most altcoin people seem like. Just some greasy fucking altcoin or greasy fucking car dealer salesman or some shit like that, man. But you know, here's the difference between these two charts. This one's been in a 3-year downtrend. You know, you can't make an excuse for something. You can't make an excuse for something when other things are actually, you know, pulling through. Well, what this was obviously in traditional markets when I used to trade there. But one thing that my mentor always told me is like, if you're making a mistake for your stock, you know, why it's not following the rest of the market, that's usually a very bad sign. And in this case right here, and for most cryptocurrencies, this is pretty much par for the course. You know, this is lower highs over the last 3 years. Compare it with this, higher highs for the last 3 years. I mean, these are completely different charts right here. So while, you know, most of the market is going to get a bit of an up, versus Satoshis, you know, the ones that have been perennial losers are just putting in lower highs over the long term, while the ones that have been perennial winners are putting in phenomenal rallies. They get to rally to the moon and beyond. Anyways, let's go check out gold really quick. How's gold doing? We didn't look at this one yesterday, but we did say a very likely move back down to 1880 or 1890, and I believe that's, well, we actually didn't quite get there yesterday. We got to 1900 even, but overall close enough is close enough. I would be looking for this bounce to play out a little bit more from this region. Yeah, daily looks like it probably wants to bounce back up towards 1980, 1985 region. And this one does make me reconsider my thoughts on Bitcoin, actually. It does also have, or does it have, I wouldn't necessarily call that, you know, you can look at this both ways. You can look at this as a descending triangle on RSI. You could also look at this as hidden bullish divergence, but just barely. No, I don't even think it's really that. I don't think it's really either of those things. But if I was just looking at the daily here, I do think that it tries to pop back up towards 1980 or 1985. Looking at a 4-hour, looks like a lower high. Short term, I'd be looking down here, I suppose, back down to like 1920, and then probably tries to play a bounce from there. I will be wrong if this one closes a 4-hour dildo below 1920, and I would target a move all the way down here to 1860 to be quite direct. But I do think it's more or less in bouncy territory on the higher term timeframes. Again, that doesn't mean that the lower term timeframes can't head lower. It's just higher term timeframes probably do take over at some point, probably around the end of the week, if I had to guess. Let's go look at Nasdaq futures. Oh, is this making new all-time highs upon new all-time highs upon new all-time fucking highs? That would be exactly correct, and all you've had to do was be long this thing ever since about 2009. So the true moon boys are in the traditional markets. This is what it looks like to me, man. I mean, this is really starting to get a little bit crazy. You know, while I do think that this one might have like I've been saying, another leg higher, I would start to be getting a little bit scared on this one. Okay, so I guess I'll maintain my next target of 12,150. I believe that also was in line with the expected moves chart, as we saw over here. Let's go check that one out. Does it still have this area kind of marked off? We expect to see one of the standard deviations in that region, and yes, we do. The first standard deviation is around that region. Second standard deviation shows 12,450. Third standard deviation shows 12,700. So all those are an area of interest going forwards here. But overall, I do think that it's going to get another move higher here, as I've been saying for the last few weeks, and this one very likely does get another continuation drive high. I mean, there's nothing bearish about this chart. Maybe a short-term pullback, maybe back down to 11,800, but I'd be looking for a bounce there, if anything. Or sorry, not even 11,800, but 11,830, 11,850-ish region. But overall, the direction is higher here, and I do think that it will reach for the 3618 Fibonacci extension, also in line with the first deviation that we see on the expected moves chart, actually going all the way back like a week ago. That's been kind of the same consistent area. So I would be keeping an intentful eye right here. I would be looking for a pullback off this region. Overall direction is up. Overall very healthy. Well, I don't know about very healthy. Overall very bullish, and very likely another drive to the upside. I would start to really be getting, I would start to be getting like really cautious in this region right here, 12,150 or 12,500. One of these two regions, tentatively speaking, is one of the areas that I do think potential top, but extreme likelihood of at the very least a medium-term pullback. For right now, it's been an absolute beast and will continue to be an absolute beast. Let's go check out, let's actually go check out Shanghai, Shanghai Composite. I've been meaning to check this one out as well. I want to see how these guys are doing. Okay, so looking at this chart, definitely not as strong as U.S. markets, but overall going to be consolidated at a high level right here. So what does that mean? Yeah, it looks like it's putting in a ascending triangle, at a high level here on this current rally. So I'd be looking for it to bounce off this region, pop back up short term towards like 3,400ish region, give or take a few bucks, and then kind of fill this area out. As long as it's maintaining these higher lows with daily closures above 33.15, I'm basically bullish on this one, looking for this one to give another try higher. If this one does break to the upside, we could make a measure move on this. I'll do like a very terrible job of this. This is not going to be exact, by the way, but it does quite literally match up exactly with the same areas that you'd be looking at on Bitcoin, actually, kind of the same, like, I guess this goes back to 2015, but this would be like the same area as January 2018, and kind of in line with that. So that is typically a good sign. And overall, I do think that it will work its way back up there towards 3630 to 3700ish region. And, at the same time, we'll have a chance to actually break that level and go above and beyond. Yes, potential, but this is getting into like very long-term stuff. If that were to happen, I'll target a move towards 4,000. Very interesting, but all world markets are pretty much in concert right now with varying degrees of strength. Looking across the board for U.S. markets, go check out E-mini futures for SPY. What do you know? New all-time highs. What do you fucking know? And what do we say here? Did I even get about a target here? I don't think I did. I think we could look at expected moves for this one too. What's going to be an area of interest on this one? Jesus, man, these are going to get so crazy here. 35.50 to the upside, first standard deviation, second standard deviation showing 36, third showing 36.75. All areas of interest on this one. If I had to do something here, I guess I have like a major extension. I do have the one spot 272 on the overall formation here. This would be like a generational area, I guess, at 3,700, and then the one spot 414 at 38.77. Did those match up with anything that we saw over here? Okay, hold on. Let me just pull those numbers. 37 once again. Let's see. Was this 37? The third standard deviation actually is around 3,700. So tentatively speaking, I think it'd be very disingenuous for me to say that it's likely to come up here. What I'd really be saying about this one is the same thing that I say about Nasdaq, is that at this price point, or anything that's in a blue sky breakout, at this price point, what I'm looking for is divergences on a weekly and nothing less to denote somewhat of a local high that actually gets like a medium term, maybe even long term pullback. But for right now, is it anywhere near? No, in fact, nowhere near. And if anything, it just got oh my fucking god, it just got another buy signal on the daily jewel. Now this is like the most aggressive buy signal I think I've ever seen on the jewel ever. You almost never see this sort of a setup at this level. You really want to be seeing that sort of a setup way down here. Those are the fucking phenomenal ones, at least in my experience. This one right here, technically speaking, that would be what it implies. I I don't want any piece of this though. But again, no bearish evidence at all on a daily RSI. I'm sure someone's gonna pull this price point back out over here. This is fucking 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago actually. And on a 14 period on your daily RSI, well, that's not gonna be all that relevant to that. Maybe on a weekly, let's see. Is any sort of divergences here forming? I mean, it will at some point, yes. Maybe even a trend line coming in at this level right here. Could be, but that would also imply, it's going to head up quite a bit more. And could it actually make a run for those higher targets that I did have up there? I guess so. I feel a little bit disingenuous suggesting that though, because it's so far away. But overall, this one is bullish AF as long as it's above the prior breakout point, which was 34.14. So I remain bullish on this as well, and be looking for new all-time highs again. I feel like a fucking broken record over the last few months on this one. Okay, let's go check out Microsoft. Did it break out to the upside? Oh yes, it did. Nice one, Microsoft. Man, this is what I should really be looking at, not this crypto bullshit. But I still maintain that short term very likely does pull back off the 1.272 fib here. It actually did meet it almost exactly, which was our first target after breaking out of 216.5. Then I'd target a short term move towards 224 region, but ultimately there is a mesh move to be made off of this formation that it put in right here, and it would be suggesting actually a little bit north of 233 region, which is also in line with the the 2 fib extension right there. I'm curious if that one also lines up as well with some sort of a major area or a major standard deviation for the expected moves chart. Just out of curiosity here, they should naturally have confluence. And let's see, is that true? Is that true? Damn, these things need to get more diverse. Yeah, third standard deviation would be right around that territory. So yeah, I do maintain that area, and looking overall good. Apple, on the other hand, popping back up here. Jesus, man. Oh my. I do think that it's gonna. I do think that it is going to hit this 525 target, which is also the 4.236 fib extension. I also do think that it's very likely to put in a major high here as well. Or at least a medium-term high at the very fucking least. So yeah, another swipe to the upside probably does put in some sort of divergence signals around that area, which, yeah, it is kind of building on right now. So I'd be very cautious within that region, 525. And overall, I'd be cautiously looking for it to hit that area as long as it's closing daily totals above $500. But I do think that it's very close. Tesla, same thing. Actually, new all-time highs on this one. So nope, I'd actually be looking for new all-time highs coming into today. Kind of hard to hate this chart. It's this one's going higher. 2260 is my next area. 3.618 Fibonacci extension right there. And we can also look at expected moves for this one too and come up with something hopefully relevant. Let's see. What is this going to look like right here? First standard deviation, we're actually above it right now. Second standard deviation showing 2250, third showing at 2330. And I believe 2250 was the second standard deviation. Yes, indeed it was. So yeah, I do think that it will head up there over the next couple of weeks, I suppose. But same thing here as well. I'd be a little bit cautious here as long as it's above, let's say, this area right here, 1965. I guess I'm just generally bullish. If it does crack back down below this area, I would look for a quick move down, all the way down here, actually somewhere around 1800 base, and then probably put in another bounce, and then we'll come back to it after that. Let's go look at Mr. Buteral. How is he doing it in the early morning hours? And looking very similar to Bitcoin, living below the 21 and getting negative slopes on the 10 simple and the 21 simultaneously. Not good. I'd have the same analysis here as I do on Bitcoin. As long as it's below the 21 on a daily closing basis, I'm not bullish on this one. If it can retake it, I would look for a quick move back up to 408 and potential continuation above there. But as long as we're below, as long as we're below that price point, which is actually 391, I'd be looking for another swipe of this blue box down here at about 370-ish region. Okay, what about euro dollar? Loose. Looks like it wants to swipe up again too. Still maintaining higher lows here. It is hard to hate, although I do think over the next few months probably does put in a major high at this region. Could be wrong about that though. Anywhere above 119.5. Got to get bullish on this one again for a big move, actually. Big bad move, probably up to the 1.25 region overall. What about triple Qs? I'm going to guess new all-time highs. Oh, new all-time highs. What about England? Well, England doesn't want to follow the rest of the world apparently, so just barely hanging on for life. NYA, new highs on this run. Golden Cross, I still maintain my target of 13,300. What about Russell? Ooh, a little bit of turn down action right there. Probably be looking for another bounce off the 21 at 1550, and then we'll come back to that one, I guess, tomorrow. Okay, what else? I feel like I'm missing a few things. How long is this video already? 38 minutes. All right, that's too fucking long. Let's go on to Bitcoin. Let's go cover up these ranges, and then we'll come back tomorrow. Okay, looking at Bitcoin right now, 11.5 to the upside. For the short-term downside, 11.3, but for the long-term downside, which I really want to focus on, is the $11,000 region. But we can look at both there. No harm, no foul, I suppose. And we'll go back to this chart right here, and we'll put in the magical numbers, and the magical probabilities will spit them out and tell me exactly what to do with my life. All right. Okay, so 11,500 on a daily closure. It does have a 47% probability, or a little bit above there. By contrast, the $11,000 closure on a daily as well has about 16.5%. That actually is relatively high. That would be within the context of the first deviation, which is relevant to happen. But overall, the above target probability a lot closer. Obviously, now let's make but recognize the above target probability is only relevant for a medium term time frame move. Very likely back up towards like 11.7, probably 12,000 to be quite honest. But for right now, if it does crack back down below 11.3, I would kind of have the same implications on this. So realistically, 11.5 has the same meaning as 11.3, meaning that if Bitcoin does break 11.3 to the downside, just like if it broke it to 11.5 to the upside right here, very likely does come down and test around the long-term range. So this one over here, very likely gatekeeper for another test to the tops of the range. This one over here, very likely a gatekeeper for testing 11,000-ish region. And let's see what the probability of that one would be, which I imagine is going to be significantly higher. Maybe we can look at a lower time frame on this one as well. And yeah, actually the upside still favor though. Upside still favor, which is very interesting because we're actually closer to the downside resolution of this. Well, what does this look like on a 4 hour though? 4 hours, show me the money. 4 hour, where you at? There you are. 4 hour does flip the probabilities in favor of the downside here, 16.89% versus 13.21%, and the rings are starting to very aggressively turn to the downside. Same thing with the 12 hour, I believe. Let's confirm here. No, 12 hour rings are actually still squeezing up. Daily rings are actually still squeezing up as well. So Bulaws have a chance here. We do see that the error correcting MA, or actually the error correcting MA on the Balling Pigs moms, very likely to turn up. Maybe, hard to tell, very hard to tell. And also I forgot to check out my secondary chart right here too. I believe Bitcoin's been operating below the 20 simple on this. That's problematic as well. I very likely would be looking for another swipe of 11,250 to 11,300. And personally speaking, I do think that Bitcoin will extend that down to 11,000 and very likely bounce around 11,000, whether that be like 10.9 or 11,000 even. I don't have a strong opinion on that, but I do think that it will bounce within that region. And then we get to play the fun game of, is this a lower high or is this a reversal? And for the Bulaws, they want a reversal, obviously. For the Bearaws, they want a continuation, my friends. It is continuation. Anyways, I think that wraps up exactly what I want to say today. I'd like to wish everyone well. I'd like to wish everyone the best, and the happiest once again. Take care, and until next time. Oh, also forgot to mention, next week is my birthday, actually. So if you are considering buying any of the programs, just wait a week. It'll be much cheaper, or it'll be about 20% cheaper, and so I'll make the official announcement on the day on September 2nd next week. Anyways, with that said, I'd like to wish everyone well once again. Take care, and until next time.